This is 2C part 1. We've created the basic quote sheet where we put all the input data, and now we're being asked to create some calculations. Now this can look quite daunting at first, but what we can do is take it bit by bit, decompose the problem into small parts. First of all, let's put some titles for all the formulae that are being asked for, all the calculations. So that's what I've done here, is I've just put a whole set of titles for those calculations. Secondly, let's have a look at how we can make things a bit easier by naming cells so that we can use them later on. So if we have a look so far, and if we go to formulas and click on name manager, you can see that we've named a whole set of cells here already. What we're going to do though is name other cells within our worksheet. So here, first name, we're going to need to use that for the reference number, so we'll name that forename. We'll name this surname. We'll go for a hire date for the date of hire, and a return date. And you can see how this is going to make life quite a lot easier. We've already named that depot because we used it before. We're going to need to know the vehicle later on, so we'll name that vehicle. This is our youngest driver age, so I'm going to name it youngest age. And we'll name this accidents because it's the number of accidents. The results of, let's see, I don't think I did that then, so we'll just do it again. Name it accidents. There we go, it's done it this time. These ones are already set up, so they will go through to these named cells here. What we'll also do is we're going to need to use some of this information. Some of these are going to be interim calculations. So I'll do all these now, but you'll probably find that you just do them as you go along rather than doing them all at the beginning. But we're going to give them all some sensible names. So hire rate per day, just with a number of days, because we can't work out the hire rate until we know the number of days and the hire rate per day. So that will be our hire rate, and then we're going to have our additional drivers, and I'm going to call this additional drivers percent. Just going to make life a lot easier than making reference to F22 and things like this. So this will be add drivers amount, and we're also going to need to use this table because we'll be looking up the vehicle type, and when we know the vehicle type, we'll want to know which rate to use. So this will be the part that we'll be using, because we'll need to know that. We'll look at the vehicle type based on what was selected in the drop down box, and we'll go across so that's just got us started. And as I say, you'll probably do those as you go along, because you know it's a bit difficult to see which ones are going to need naming right from the beginning. What we can do is we can start to have a look at some of the easy formulae first. So for example, the number of days that the vehicle has been hired for, that, if we'll just put that in green for the moment, there we go, that's quite easy to calculate because it's just literally the return date minus the hire date, almost. So we'll put that in, equals the return date minus the hire date. However, in this case it does say including both the date of hire and the date of return, so we have got to add one to it so that it includes those. Now it's not put my name cells in here, so I'm going to put we'll type it in manually, equals hire date, and for some reason it didn't work. So if we just go back and have a look, these ones didn't name, so it's probably because I didn't press enter at the end of them. So what I'm going to do is just pause the video tutorial and do that, and we'll come back to it in a moment. Okay, so these sort of things, mistakes happen, and it was literally because I hadn't pressed enter after I'd done the date. So now we've got hire date and we've got return date. So now we can calculate the number of days equals our date of return minus the date of hire, and let's add that one on so that it's inclusive, because it does say including both the date of hire and the date of return. That's not always the case, it just happens to be the case in this scenario. So that's showing us 8 days. We can also calculate the hire rate. Although we don't know the hire rate per day yet, we have got it named. So a hire rate, it says the number of days times the hire rate per day. So we can do that, number of days times the hire rate per day. Mine's already set to currency, you might need to set yours to, okay, it's coming out as 0, but we've got the formula done, and we can show evidence of that formula, and there may be marks of that, even though we haven't put the other data in. And in fact, it might be that you if you find this particular formula function too hard, you just type in what the hire rate is per day. You look it up yourself in here, and you say, right, okay, I'll look it up and find that out, and then it will give you those calculations. Our next one that's quite simple is the additional drivers amount. Now, although we don't know the percentages yet, we can't calculate whether it's going to be 15% or 22%, then what we can actually do is we can actually at least say that the amount that will be charged will be whatever the hire rate is multiplied by whatever that percentage is, and that will be the additional charge. Which then means we can actually work out the total quote as well based on this information, and that will be the hire rate plus the additional amount that we charge for the drivers, the additional drivers. So we'll press enter on that, and again it's giving us 0, which is fine, but if we put some of this data in manually, then we can get that figure. So let's just give you an example. Let's say you couldn't work this out, so you decide to put 15% in there. You can't work out the hire rate, so you go, right, okay, it's a Bristol, it's an estate car, and then you've got to work out which one it's going to be. So you look at this and the number of points, you work out what the rate is. Bristol, estate car, it's going to be one of those 3 rates. Okay, you decide which one it is based on the rules, and you can just type in the value, and at least you've got some values that start to appear here. So that's looked at decomposing it into some of the simple formulae and functions. What we're going to do in the next tutorial is start looking at some of the ones that get a little bit more complicated.